from the residence and secured them into my van. I then take those back to the crime lab where I do a complete inventory of all the items of evidence that were collected. And then I write a report and I impound those items with our property and evidence unit.
In addition to the blue backpack and its contents that we saw and the riding shoes that in the photographs that I was showing you, did you also personally seize and inventory a number of electronic devices from the residence?
Yes, I did.
Did that include a DVR set that was attached to a surveillance system?
I would have to refer to my notes to see, but I know I did collect a lot of electronic items from the residents.
And in terms of all of the electronic items that you did seize, did that include laptop computers?
Yes.
Were there a number of Apple manufactured products that were both laptops but then also cell phones?
Yes.
Were there gaming systems that were impounded?
Yes.
Was there a Garmin a GPS device?
Yes.
Was there a GoPro camera impounded?
I do not recall if there was a GoPro. Again, I'd have to look through my...
Okay, well, to refresh your recollection, first as to the DVR system.
Yes.
So please refer to your report.
Thank you. So in my report, I do find that I collected a black Luma DVR device, and I also collected several Arachnus networks devices and some Control 4 devices that I'm not familiar with what the purpose of those things are.
Can you spell that for the court reporter? You said Arachnus?
Yes, it's ARAKNIS networks.
All right, thank you. Next question.
Is it fair to say that each of the items that you collected, you then impounded under the sheriff's case number associated with the case, ending 974?
Yes, that's correct.
And in terms of the inventory process, once you've impounded it, do you assign an individual item number to everything that's been collected?
Yes, I do.
For the sheriff's, the evidence room, the property and evidence facility, how is it that those are identified in addition to the item number associated with the case itself?
When I assign an item number to an item of evidence, it's called a forensic identification number or a FIN number. Each FIN number also gets a unique barcode, and those barcodes are assigned through our property and evidence unit.
And does the FIN, the FIN, as well as the barcode, do they also have a verbal description of what the item is that's being impounded?
Yes, when I impound the evidence, I place a label onto the item that is a detailed description of what's included in that package.
And is that how it then is tracked for any potential forensic examination of those items later?
The barcode is used to either be checked out and checked back in if analysis is to be done on that item of evidence.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Cross.
So much going. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
So you basically you come in with a camera, right? Take pictures of things.
That's correct.
And you also lift evidence, like you do fingerprint lifts.
That's correct.
It's like on TV. Is it really Scotch tape and glue?
Yes, we do use adhesive tape and super glue that you would find in Home Depot.
There you go.
There
All
you
right.
go.
So you go take latent fingerprint lifts. You do you take photos of evidentiary items, right?
Correct.
You're not making an independent. You don't make an independent assessment of what has evidentiary value. Isn't that correct?
I work with a team of detectives based on the circumstances in the case to determine what may or may not be relevant to the case, and then determine with the detectives what items should be collected.
Okay, but in this case, you basically were shown items and basically told to take pictures of them.
A majority of the items in this case, yes. The detective had previously identified the item of evidence and asked for it to be collected.
For instance, the photo of the backpack, right? I mean, that you were told to take a picture of that.
Yes.
And you were told that had evidentiary value.
Yes.
right? You were not told whether there were any other backpacks inside of the house.
No, I was not told if there were other backpacks other than me going through and doing, overall photographs of the residence. I was not told to collect any other items.
Right. So you essentially, you were shown a blue backpack, told to take a picture of a blue backpack, and that's what you did.
That's correct.
Likewise with your cycling shoes,
Yes.
same thing,
Yes.
right? You testified that you took some electronic devices, or at least you impounded those.
That's correct.
You made sure that they maintained their integrity of the actual machine itself.
Yes.
You didn't turn them on at the side, did you?
No.
Okay. Did you process those for fingerprints?
I did not.
You also did you do anything with the car, the truck, the Hummer?
Yes, I did.
What did you do with the Hummer?
I was asked to process the Hummer. I did overall photographs of that. I also processed it for latent prints using a visual examination and black powder.
Okay, visual examination, what is that?
Basically, I used my eyes. I would do a visual examination to see if I could find or see anything that was obvious. I also use a flashlight at an oblique angle, which is a very shallow angle, which sometimes will help us visualize prints that may be present. And then after that, I use black powder and I apply that with a brush, hoping to bring out any prints that might be present there.
You do this inside the vehicle, you do it in areas where a person would be most likely to touch, right? Correct?
That's correct.
So you want to be on the console, right?
Yes.
Maybe around where the radio is or the music player is, right?
Yes.
Maybe the glove box.
So I did process certain areas, including the door panels, the door frames of the front passenger, rear passenger side, and rear driver side of the vehicle, as well as the center console and the gear shifter.
Okay, specifically from the passenger side, did you find any latent prints that you could use?
I did obtain 5 latent lift cards from the passenger side of the vehicle. I submitted those into property and evidence, and I'm unaware if they were examined by a latent print examiner.
Okay, so now when you say that you found 5 prints, are you telling me that in your opinion those were prints which could be analyzed?
No, I think I said 5 latent lift cards.
Lift card, sorry.
Right, which, yes, I saw what I believe to be ridge detail. As to the value of the ridge detail that was present on each lift card, that would be left to a latent print examiner.
But as far as your role was, you believe that there was something of evidentiary value on the lift card.
I did visualize ridge detail, and then it's up to them to determine the value.
And by the way, I know, but for the jury's purposes, what is a lift card?
A lift card is exactly like we talked about at the beginning of this with adhesive tape, clear adhesive tape. So I use the black powder. I develop a print that is present on the surface. I lay the adhesive tape over that print, and then I remove the tape and place it onto a white lift card. And so when I say I had 5 lift cards, I had 5 of those with tape adhered to the latent lift card.
So there would be 1 print on each card, or?
No, I wouldn't say 1 print per card. I would just say that there was ridge detail present on each lift, and then as to the number of prints that may be present there, again, that would be up to the latent print examiner.
Okay, so in your role, have you also been called to check for the presence of blood inside a house or a vehicle?
Yes.
What would you do to make that determination?
So there are several things we can use to search for blood. If we're looking for visible blood, we would just use a very bright white light looking for visible blood. And then if we're looking for latent blood or blood that we can't see, we would have to use a chemical to possibly have a reaction with any blood that might be present, which causes it to luminesce, and then we can see that area.
Can't use big words like that. Luminesce means what?
It just means that the area, there's a reaction between our chemical and a component of blood that causes that area to glow It glows like a light bluish color, so it does have to be done in darkness so that we can visualize that.
How long you been employed in your position?
Well, I've been with the Sheriff's Department since 2011, but I've been doing this work specifically between the Sheriff's Department and the San Diego Police Department since 2007. So about 12 years.
12 years, it's fair for me to say you've been to a lot of crime scenes.
That's correct.
And you've taken a lot of, you took courses on blood spatter and blood stain analysis.
Well, I have had courses in bloodstain pattern documentation. I have had those training classes.
And you've been to crime scenes which have some have a small amount of blood, others have an enormous amount of blood, correct?
That's correct.
And you would agree with me that blood is one of those items which, that there can be minute remnants or, large puddles, essentially, right?
Correct.
And sometimes you can detect blood which isn't actually visible to the naked eye.
That's correct.
There's blood can travel through the air to all different parts of an area, correct?
Correct.
In other words, so if somebody were trying to clean up blood, they might be cleaning up in an area where they thought the blood was, but it could actually have traveled, it could be arterial spread, it could be fragments which go in all different directions.
Yes, somebody could try to clean up blood in one area and not realize that there is blood in another area and potentially miss that area.
In this vehicle, did you locate any items which might have some type of evidentiary value regarding blood?
So in this case, I was working with a criminalist at the time, and so he did an examination of the vehicle for visible blood.
Okay. But
And
you weren't part of this?
I was present during the time that he did it.
Okay. Was any blood found?
So he found two areas that, I'm sorry, one area that reacted with the chemical and luminesced or glowed, that blue color, and so we sampled from that area.
Okay. And what criminalist was this?
That was criminalist Darren Bowles.
So who would do the analysis of that?
So I collected the stains, I collected the swabs that criminalist Bowles collected, and then I impound those with property and evidence. The lab request for the analysis of that is then assigned by a DNA supervisor.
Okay, so you don't know the outcome of that particular finding?
I do not.
So that would take another individual to come in and tell this jury whether or not there was actually blood found there or if it was just a dark substance.
That's correct.
And that happens, you agree?
Yes, I have seen that happen.
And by that, meaning it not be blood, but just some other
That's correct.
substance.
Yes.
All right, so one of the other things you did was you swabbed for DNA inside the vehicle.
That's correct.
Explain to the jury what you did as far as, first of all, what is swabbing for DNA as far as your role goes?
Okay. Swabbing for DNA means that I take a sterile swab and some distilled water. I get the swab just a little bit wet, a drop or two of the distilled water. And then I swab an area that I'm interested in for what we call contact or touch DNA, meaning somebody handled that area or touched that area. I take that wet swab and I really swab the area such as a door handle, a seatbelt buckle, something of that nature. And then I place that swab. It has a plastic cap on it. I close the plastic cap, put it into an envelope, and then again it gets inventoried, written on my report, and submitted to property and evidence.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there are various ways that you can get a DNA sample, essentially?
I'm not sure I
It's a
understand.
bad question. In other words, there are several ways to leave DNA. How's that?
Yes, that's correct.
So you can get DNA through blood,
Yes.
hair follicles,
If the root is present, we can get nuclear DNA from hair.
you can get it from skin
Yes.
samples, it's scrapings, things like that.
Yes.
And you talked about contact DNA also. It's just somebody touching an area, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, and that type of DNA that we described, a lot of it is not visible to the naked eye. You would agree?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so what you do then is essentially back to the vehicle. You've got the vehicle and you take swabs from areas where you know a person would most likely be. correct?
Yes,
So for the driver's side, the steering wheel, the door handle, the seats, correct?
yes,
So specifically in this case, the passenger seat, right? The passenger seat, the front passenger seat, did you take any DNA swabs for the front passenger seat?
yes.
Okay, where did you take them from?
I would need to refer to my report.
If it refreshes your recollection, you
Yeah.
can read through the report, I would have no objection to that.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. You can read directly from your report by stipulation.
Can you tell me where you obtained the swabs?
Yes. So item 9.3 was one DNA swab kit containing 2 swabs of possible DNA evidence collected from the interior front passenger door panel in the black Hummer.
Okay, just wait, stop there. So where is that? Explain what part of the car is that?
So this would be the door panel, the interior side of the door panel. So it would be like the window sill, just inside the window, and then the area where like you might rest your arm on the door panel. So it would be those areas.
Okay, and you were actually able to extract some DNA samples from there?
Oh no, I don't do the extraction of the DNA. I just swab the area for possible DNA.
And so when you swab it for possible DNA, you just do the entire area?
Yes, so in this case, I took 2 swabs because it is a large area. So I took 2 swabs simultaneously and I swabbed those areas on the door panel.
Okay. And I guess that's the point. You don't know whether you have any DNA.
That's correct.
Right? So you're sort of like you're taking an educated guess where somebody might be and then hoping to find something.
That's correct, and then it would be submitted later to a DNA analyst who would do the analysis of the swabs.
Okay, so 9.4.
9.4 is one DNA swab kit containing 2 swabs of possible DNA evidence collected from the front passenger seatbelt buckle and latch.
Okay, and that would be basically somebody putting a seatbelt on. They manipulate the first the belt, then the buckle, and then the clasp, right?
That's correct.
And that's something you've done in the past.
Yes,
And so you swab those areas,
I did.
the whole seat belt too.
No, just the seatbelt buckle, so the little plastic piece that slides along the belt, that plastic piece there, and the clasp area.
Okay. And 9.5.
One DNA swab kit containing 2 swabs of possible DNA evidence collected from the interior rear passenger side door panel.
So that's the same thing that you described in the front passenger. It's on the rear side.
The rear passenger side, yes.
And 9.6.
One DNA swab kit containing 2 swabs of possible DNA evidence collected from the rear passenger side seatbelt buckle and latch.
Same thing as in the front seat.
That's
Right.
correct.
And so it's fair for me to say that you did the same sort of analysis for the driver's side and then the driver's rear side, right?
So I did the rear driver's side, but I did not do the driver compartment area.
Why is that?
After discussion, it was determined that we were looking for somebody that was not the owner of the vehicle or driver of the vehicle, so it would be more likely we would find that DNA in the passenger areas of the vehicle.
Right, so you would expect the driver's side to have essentially the owner's or the driver's DNA pretty much all over it.
That's correct.
Everybody in here would have their DNA on the handles and the steering wheel and the stick shift, things like that, right?
Yes,
So what you're looking for are people who are not the driver and their DNA in different parts of the vehicle.
that's correct.
So did you know that this was a sexual assault allegation?
I did.
Okay, so did you know that that somebody had claimed that it happened inside the vehicle?
I did.
And so was that reason that you did the DNA swabs that you've described to the jury here?
Yes.
Says that's why you did you do the back seat too?
We examined the back seat. I did the swabs on the door panels and the seat belts for both seats in the back. And then we did an examination for visible blood and semen. And then on a different occasion, we tested with the chemical for latent blood.
Okay, so that was all tested. This vehicle was apparently, it was tested for blood, it was tested for DNA, and then retested again, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. Did you test the back seat for blood also?
The criminalist that I worked with did a visual examination of the area for visible blood on the first occasion of processing the vehicle, and we did not locate any apparent blood.
Let me ask you this, you saw the interior of the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Okay, the interior of the vehicle was dark colored?
Yes.
Was it black or was it gray, do you remember?
I believe it was a very dark charcoal gray or black. It was very dark.
Pretty close to black, right?
Yes.
So, were there floor mats in the front passenger seat, if you recall?
I don't recall.
I think we all agree there's probably carpet in there, something, the floor is carpet,
Yes,
right, and it's dark.
that's correct.
So and blood, when you see in crime scenes, blood is essentially the dark colored sort of brownish look, right?
That's correct.
And wouldn't really show up on the black very well.
Well, we can visualize blood if it's visible blood. We can visualize it. We use a very bright white light, and it does help us during the examination of the vehicle.
Well, I mean, that's the point, you're a professional, correct?
Yes.
All right, so you have the tools and equipment to actually look for, remnants of blood on the floorboards, correct?
Yes,
So in other words, an untrained observer looking down is looking into basically a black carpet, essentially.
yes, it might be very difficult to see in those circumstances.
Thank you. And anything further?
All right, any redirect?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Ms. Silverthorn, since we went into this area, some of your follow-up, I just have some questions to ask you regarding the processing of the vehicle. To your knowledge, was that vehicle in fact seized on June 14th of 2018?
Yes, it was.
That would be the same day that you were personally at the residence collecting the items that we discussed on direct examination?
That's correct.
Did the initial processing of the vehicle take place on June 19th of 2018?
I believe we processed it initially on June 20th.
And then on June 19th were arrangements made to then process it on June 20th?
Yes, that's correct.
And you mentioned that there was a criminalist who was involved in the processing, and you've also mentioned now that there were 2 times in which the vehicle was examined, correct?
Yes,
Was the criminalist who assisted with the examination on June 20th, was that Stephen Liu?
yes, it was.
And then on the later date in October, was that Darren Bowles?
Yes, it was.
Now, you're the senior forensic evidence technician, but they are the criminalists who worked within the crime lab, correct?
That's correct.
And in terms of your collection of any potential items of interest, that would then be forensically examined by the DNA analysts at a later date, correct?
Yes,
But in terms of your collection of evidence, starting on June 20th, did you photograph the actual Hummer H2 on that day in its condition, at least as you took it at the property or the sheriff's impound lot?
yes,
Showing you what's been marked for identification as Courts Exhibit 71. Do you recognize that?
yes.
And what is it?
This is a photograph of the front of the Hummer that we processed inside our garage.
And does that have paper plates that are visible on the front end and the lower portion of the vehicle?
Yes,
And what does that state? The paper plates, if you're able to see it.
I believe it says Champion Motorworks. Motoring, I'm sorry.
Champion Motoring?
Champion Motoring.
It didn't have an actual license plate, did it?
No, it did not.
Showing you Courts Exhibit 72 for identification. Is that in the rear or the passenger side view of the vehicle?
Yes,
And did you take these photographs?
I did.
Showing you Courts Exhibit 73 for identification. Is that a view with the door open of the front passenger seat of the vehicle?
Yes,
Can you just indicate with the pointer that's there at the witness stand, the areas that you swabbed for potential presence of DNA that you were discussing with Mr. Carlos?
so on this photograph, it's a little difficult to see the door panel, but I would have swabbed the armrest area and the windowsill area on the inside of this panel of the door. And then also on the left side of the photograph here, you can see the plastic seatbelt piece that slides up and down the belt. I swabbed that. And then this latch area here down towards more center of the photograph.
And you're indicating the seatbelt latch?
That's correct.
Showing you a close-up view of the same area on Courts Exhibit 74 for identification. Is that the front passenger seat?
Yes.
Did you swab the seat cushion areas, or did you simply swab the seat belt itself?
I did not swab the seat cushion areas, just the seat belt latch.
Showing you Courts Exhibit 75 for identification. Did you swab any areas visible here for potential DNA?
Other than the seatbelt buckle and latch, no, I did not.
And this would be the front passenger seat with the lower seat cushion area and the floorboard visible, is that right?
Yes.
I'm showing you Courts Exhibit 76 for identification. To orient us, is this now the rear passenger compartment, specifically focused in the foreground on the right rear passenger seat?
Yes, the rear passenger side.
And did you swab these areas for any potential DNA?
Again, in this photograph on the far left, showing the plastic piece of the seatbelt buckle and then the latch that's towards the center of the photograph.
Did you attempt to obtain any potential DNA from the floorboard areas?
I did not. I did I did receive 2 items of evidence from criminalist Stephen Liu at the time that were possible DNA samples, and I received those from him.
When you say they're possible DNA samples, did you in fact impound miscellaneous trace evidence lifts collected from the front and rear seats?
Yes.
And is that what you're referring to?
No.
What is it that you're referring to as being the DNA samples that you received from the vehicle?
Yes, so there were 2 stains that were located by criminalist Stephen Liu that he believed to be relevant. And so he collected those stains and then turned the stain collection kits over to me for impound.
And the stain collection kits, when you say that a criminalist determines it to be relevant, are you describing the process by which a criminalist looks to determine whether or not there's any presence of biological material, either blood or potentially semen?
Yes.
And in terms of your impounding of that, the stains that were suspected to be biological material, were they then impounded into evidence and submitted for forensic evaluation?
Yes.
And that would be a DNA analyst who would be able to testify to those findings, correct?
That's correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, anything further, Mr. Carlos?
There you
All right, can this witness be excused?
She may.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people now call Angela Rozsa.
You do solemnly state that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
If you would, please have a seat at the witness stand.
Good morning.
And if you would, please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Angela Rozsa, Angela Rozsa.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Rozsa.
Good morning.
Can you tell the jury what you do for a living?
Sure. I currently work for the San Diego Police Department as a computer forensic examiner. I'm assigned to the Regional Computer Forensics Lab.
Can you tell the jury what the Regional Computer Forensics Lab is?
We are a task force that's headed by the FBI. We have 13 local and federal law enforcement agencies that are comprised on that task force, and essentially we do any computer-related or digital evidence examinations for state and local agencies and federal agencies within the San Diego and Imperial counties.
Are there various RCFL laboratories throughout the state of California?
Yes, there are.
Is there an RCFL laboratory, for example, in Riverside County?
It's part of the one from Orange County. Yes.
And you mentioned that you cover, at least at the lab that you work at, you cover San Diego and Imperial counties, right?
Yes, sir.
And then there's other labs that would cover, for example, Orange County and Riverside County, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, can you explain to the jury some of the training that you've received in order to qualify yourself as a forensic technician in this particular area of computer forensics?
Sure. When I was assigned to the lab, I didn't have any of the specific classes under my belt that were required. And so as a trainee, they send you to all the classes that you need. Some of them are put on by the FBI in our internal classes, and some are vendor specific. So as a trainee, I would go to, one was called CART 101, which is essentially an overview of the computer analysis response team. It would teach me what that is basically and how documentation should be for the different pieces of evidence and reporting as such. Access Data is one of the vendors of some of the software that we use. So some of the classes for the training were actually put on by Access Data, and that included one to show the overview of how to use it, as well as one that was specific to all the Windows forensics artifacts, one for internet artifacts. I also have completed A+ and Net+, which are industry standard trainings. Following those, we would be sent to CART practicals, where they would actually give us a mock examination to take back to the lab to complete, and then do the entire examination on and write up. And then we would go to moot court to testify about the findings that we had. Following that, I was certified as a forensic examiner. Also, during that time, I was working with a mentor within our lab, and working on actual evidence and doing all the reportings. And then following getting my actual authorization to be the computer forensic examiner for the lab, I've been that for close to 10 years between being a trainee and now. I was assigned there in March of 2009. So I've been an examiner, I've been an operations manager, which is basically a team leader. We have two groups of examiners in the lab, and the operations manager essentially assigns the cases out to the person who he or she thinks would be the best person suited for that type of exam based on the type of content that was submitted for exam. I'm currently the deputy director, and for 6 months I was the acting director when our former director stepped down.
So in terms of the laboratory, the RCFL here locally, where is it based?
Right now we're out of the FBI building off of Vista Sorrento Parkway. We just moved there 6 years ago to the new building.
Is that the large building that's visible off the 5 freeway as you're getting through the Torrey Pines area?
Yes.
Now, when you were, at least initially, you talked about some of the the coursework that you took and some of the classes that you took in order to qualify yourself as a forensic examiner. Over the course of your over 10 years at the RCFL, have you actually gone and promoted up to being an operations manager and then the deputy director?
Yes, and in that time frame, there were also additional classes that I had to take. They require at least 2 per year. I have about 700 hours of training from the time I was assigned there till now.
And in terms of the types of devices that RCFL examines, can you just give the jury a good understanding of what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis?
As far as types of digital evidence that we actually examine, the computers and their associated hard drives or any loose media that could be associated with those, cameras and SD cards that could contain those photos or videos, DVRs, cell phones. We've had actual infotainment systems from vehicles that we've done digital forensics on, so it's pretty much the gamut. And there have also been some drones that have been requested.
In terms of how they're handled and how the requests are made, can you just walk us through the process when items of evidence are submitted to the RCFL for examination?
Sure. So a case agent, detective, special agent would bring any digital evidence to us along with a service request and their legal authority that would authorize us to do the forensic exam.
Would that be something such as a search warrant?
Yes.
And would
Search
you- would you
warrant or
refer to
consent.
legal authority?
Yes. They'll submit the items to us, we package them in anti-static bags, assign a master container inventory barcode number so that everything is identifiable. That is put into an electronic evidence system. The actual service request would then come to me, and I review each and every legal authority for each and every case that's submitted, and then it goes to the operation manager and then to the forensic examiner. Once the forensic examiner gets the request, they get into contact with the person who submitted it and answer any questions that they may have in addition to whatever was requested on the service request. And then they begin the inventory and documentation. We photograph everything, assign specific barcodes to each piece of evidence. So like a computer is going to get a barcode for the container, and then it's going to get a barcode for every piece of media or anything that's attached to it that could be examined. Following that, the actual media would be write blocked, either with a hardware write blocker or with a software write blocker, so that nothing could happen to the original evidence, and to maintain that integrity. And we create what's called an image. It's a bit-for-bit copy of everything that's on that specific media.
Ms. Rozsa, let me stop you there in
Yes,
terms
sir.
of the imaging now process. So in order to make sure that the items are collected in a forensically sound manner, do you take steps to preserve against the possibility of corrupting the actual original evidence that's submitted?
Yes.
Is that why you image the hard drive or where the data may be stored onto a copy?
Right, and so we just have to make sure, like I said, that it's always write protected, so nothing can actually write to the original evidence.
When you're conducting these types of processes, are you using certain software programs that are widely used within this area in order to be able to prevent against any corruption of the data that's submitted?
Yes.
Once you have that imaged copy, what do you do with it?
Once we have the image, which is saved to a hard drive that had been previously wiped, and that's important too because we ensure that no previous case data is contained on a hard drive that we'll use for archival purposes. Once that happens, then we load the image into whatever software programs we think would be the best suited to parse the information. Like I said before, we have Access Data Lab, or FTK. That's one of the specific ones I used for this examination. We also have Internet Evidence Finder. And so what these programs do is basically parse out the different artifacts, many times into containers based on what type of thing they are. So it could go into internet items, it could go into videos, graphics. It also uses a DT search index, so everything's indexed as it's processed, and that enables keyword searching to enable a quicker exam, basically.
So, Ms. Rozsa, for people who may not be as computer savvy or aware of computer science, and as a forensic examiner, can you explain when you're itemizing or kind of cataloging the items that may be there? Is that something that you're doing in order to just make it more user-friendly to be able to search for possible information?
I believe that's why they made the programs the way they did, because it is very user-friendly. There's an Explore tab which would show basically how you would look at your own computer in the Windows Explorer or in the Macintosh Finder. So you can see your directory structure and your desktop and where your documents are. So there's that, and then it also breaks it down into the other categories like I mentioned, as well as a search area where you can run keywords and then it will respond with where those locations are.
You mentioned that as part of your process for conducting a forensic examination of different data storage devices, that you have conversations with the case agent or the detective who's assigned to the case. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you coordinate with Detective John Johnson, seated in court, when you were conducting the imaging process and the search of various devices in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
And did you speak to him regarding potential areas that you may be looking for information that would possibly be relevant to the investigation?
Yes.
When you discussed that potential search with Detective Johnson, is it fair to say that there was a large amount of, or a large number of electronic devices that had been submitted to the Regional Computer Forensic Laboratory?
Well, for us, or for me, for what I was assigned, there were 4 items. They were all for Macintosh or Apple computers. 2 were laptops, and then 1 was an all-in-one iMac, and 1 was an older Power Mac G5. So yes, it's a lot to do for one exam, but there have been more and there have been less.
In terms of the electronic devices that were submitted for analysis, were there also devices that were submitted to the CATCH team, C-A-T-C-H?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what the CATCH team is?
CATCH is another basically high-tech task force, but it's run by the sheriff, or excuse me, by the DA's office. So it's the computer and technology crime high-tech task force. I believe that's what it stands for. I've never worked there, and none of our examiners actually work there. We have our own task force, but they do similar to what we do.
Would that be a separate task force of certified forensic examiners, at least?
Yes.
And you mentioned also that the RCFL that you work at is here in San Diego in Imperial County, and then were there also electronic devices that were submitted as essentially overflow to RCFL for Riverside and Orange County?
I'm not sure.
Okay. In terms of the specific examinations that you conducted, you mentioned the personal laptops, is that right?
Yes.
Did you in fact examine a Apple iMac?
Yes.
Did you examine an Apple MacBook?
I tried to, but the media was encrypted.
Can you just explain to the jury in terms of encryption of personal devices, what happens at the RCFL and the efforts you make to attempt to get into those devices?
Sure. We encounter a variety of types of encryption. For this in particular, with Apple products, File Vault and File Vault 2 is something that could be encountered, and if it's enabled, then it does full disk encryption as far as File Vault 2 is concerned. And to compound that, there's also a new file system called Apple File System, the APFS. So it really makes things a lot tougher when you're doing the exam, and it's typically pretty difficult to decrypt without some type of custom dictionary. So that's what we had to do in this case for the 2 laptops that were submitted. Another one of our examiners who is an expert at various decrypting techniques and generating custom content dictionaries and using really a variety of suites, does a lot of the decryption attacks for us, and he was able to decrypt one of them.
Did you also receive a cell phone that had been at least initially processed by the Sheriff's Department and then submitted to you for review and assistance in your
Yes.
own downloads of these other devices?
Yes, so I asked for the cell phone to be submitted so that we could use it to create that custom dictionary for the decryption attack. I couldn't do an examination on that cell phone because it had already previously been examined, and it would have been a violation of our own internal re-examination policy.
And when you say that there's been an examination, are you aware that there had been a Cellbrite download already conducted by the Sheriff's Department
Yes,
crime analyst?
Yes, sir.
Now, in terms of the processing of the Apple iMac, that was the one where you were successfully able to access the data, is that correct?
Yes.
When you are cataloging the information contained on a computer, did you follow the same process that you were describing where you create a mirror image and then access that data from the mirror image?
Yes.
When you coordinated with Detective Johnson, did you talk to him about whether or not any information regarding cycling activity or internet artifacts or email artifacts regarding cycling activity may be relevant to the investigation?
Yes.
Did you locate any information regarding cycling activity?
Yes, I did. I located a variety of artifacts, Twitter type of emails that were sent to the user's inbox, referencing starting cycling and going pro in 2015. There were emails from Strava saying, welcome to Strava.
Objection, Your Honor, foundation. Foundation of the board meeting.
Your Honor, at least as to the findings from the examination, perhaps we can address that and then address the...
Correct, yeah, overruled for now. She's just talking about the content of the examination, so overruled for now. Go ahead.
In terms of the Welcome to Strava email accounts, what was the time frame that those were dated on the artifacts?
So the welcome to Strava email was sent, or received, I guess, September of 2014. And there was also a tweet that had been sent out. And again, this is from email artifacts about the tweet that said, I just signed up for Strava. And that was again September 2014.
In terms of the IMAC that we're discussing, was there a user ID or a name associated with that IMAC?
It was K2, like the letter K and the number 2.
Was there a computer name that was associated with it?
It was K2's iMac.
And were there email addresses that were associated with that computer?
Yes, K2Kane80@gmail.com and K2Jwinslow@gmail.com.
And
Okay, can you repeat that
Yes.
first one? You said what, K280?
K2Kane, K2Kane80@gmail.com.
Okay, got it, thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you, Your Honor. And were those the email accounts that you're referencing that received the emails around the 2014 timeframe noting welcome to Strava?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that there were various emails regarding Twitter activity. Can you describe what was located?
Again, one was from 2013, and it references using or starting cycling. Another was the fact that he tweeted, I just signed up for Strava.
And in terms of the user information for the Strava account, the email that stated welcome to Strava, was that sent to the K2 Gmail account that you just mentioned?
I'm not sure exactly which of the two email addresses it went to offhand, but it
Was it one of
to
the
one
two?
of those, yeah,
Okay, and both of them noting K2, correct?
right.
Now, in terms of any additional email artifacts or internet artifacts regarding cycling, what else did you locate?
There was some registration for USA Cycling, another email talking about having the first amateur road race or first amateur race in January of 2015. There were receipts for a variety of Stinner bicycles, an email referencing a couple specialized bikes, specifically a Venge and a Shiv TT, like a time trial bike.
So, Ms. Rozsa, let me just ask you, are you familiar with cycling?
Yes, sir.
How are you familiar with cycling?
I ride.
What does that mean?
Well, I guess in 2012 I started riding a road bike. It was the first time I'd ever ridden. My husband got me into it. And so I used the Strava app, and I've just basically used it as a fitness tool. Having had previous knee injuries, it's a better tool for me than running is. So that's why I do it.
When you're referencing some of these bicycles, can you explain to the jury, in terms of the receipts and the emails that were obtained on this laptop, what type of bicycles are those?
So a couple of them were road bikes. The Venge and one of the Stinners would be a typical road bike setup. One was a mountain bike, that was one of the Stinners. The TT would be a time trial bike. Typically those are the ones that are more aerodynamic and have different wheel sets to make it basically faster.
And in terms of the app that you mentioned, you are personally familiar with the Strava app, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What's the Strava application?
Objection. Foundation of the board meeting minutes.
Establishing the foundation.
Overruled, they were attempting to establish the appropriate foundation. You can answer if you know.
So Strava is a mobile app that can be used to track a person's activities, including cycling, running, hiking, kayaking, skiing. It basically records the GPS route that you take. There are people who have created segments, and so a lot of times the users will measure themselves against other people who have completed those segments. It also enables the person using it to see what their top 3 scores are and gives virtual medals for that. It enables basically some trophies for top 10 of the segments, including, King of the Mountain, Queen of the Mountain, if you're the top person on that particular segment, regardless of your age or weight or anything. It's just an overall.
Is the application itself, is that something that's put onto a device?
Yes, you could use it straight from your phone, or you can have some type of GPS, like a Garmin or Forerunner, and then you can sync it to the Strava app. Sometimes you could do it through Garmin Connect, and then it'll download and sync to the Strava app. You can access Strava on the internet as well. It doesn't just have to be on the phone to be able to see what your activities were.
And in terms of accessing it, does it actually have a automatically generated report of the user's activities?
Yes.
Now, when you've used the Strava application, can you just describe how you used it?
I've used it both from my phone directly and also from using Garmin's. So when you use it on your phone, you just open up the application and then you would hit the record button and it asks you what type of activity you want to record. Typically it's either like a run or a cycle or a swim for the first ones that you can choose. And so you choose which one you want, and then it shows a map and gives you basically the little blue beacon of where you are. And then you hit start and it will basically route as you ride or run. And then when you're done, you hit finish and it will compile all the data and show you the map, show your average time, show you the amount of miles you went, the time of day, whatever types of information you have set. And when you use a Garmin, you can obviously have more items to be retained, and you can have a power meter on your bike, you can wear a heart rate monitor, and it all syncs to give you a better overview of the work that you put in.
And in terms of the GPS coordinates that are being automatically recorded when the user essentially hits the prompt of record, is that something that's then stored on the application platform itself that could be accessible through the internet or through the user's device?
Yes.
And when that is being recorded, in terms of your experience with the app, how is it that Strava obtains the GPS location information for the user when they're recording a ride?
So from the phone, it would be from the location services enabled on your phone for that application. If you're using a Garmin, then it would be when you actually upload that to the computer. Like if you physically connect it, all of the information is stored in that Garmin file, and then the GPS file that's on that Garmin, and then it would sync and upload.
In terms of your training experience as a forensic examiner, are you familiar with cell phone GPS technology?
Yes.
Can you just explain how a cell phone is able to be located in a particular geographic area based on GPS data?
Well,
It may be common sense at this point, but if you can explain based on your experience.
well, whatever I use it for, it's basically for maps, for directions, for Strava, and so my location services are enabled on my phone for those particular things, and so it will hit the various satellites to show me where I'm at, basically.
And is that the same technology that's used for the Strava application?
Yes.
Your Honor, now may be a good time. If the court would like me to continue.
But you want to take the afternoon break right now?
I think we can.
Okay, we can. It's just a good stopping point.
This would be a natural place.
Okay, let's do that then. We're going to take our afternoon recess. Please remember the admonition. Don't discuss the case with anybody or form or express any opinions. We will see everybody back here right at 1:30. 1:30. Have a nice lunch. All right, the record will reflect the jurors have left the courtroom. Were you going to go into your questions then that the defense objected to?
Yes, I could either do it with this witness, or I could also do it with the sheriff's analyst, Your Honor, but I wanted to just give the court an opportunity to address the issue.
Okay, so what we can do when we come back, do you want to take her on voir dire as to her expertise and knowledge about the Strava system?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so why don't we start with that after lunch?
All right, Your Honor, will that be done in the presence of the jury?
Yes, might as well, because they're going to be judging her knowledge about of the application, so it should be done in front of the jury. So we'll do that at 1:30. So is this your witness, Ms. Barr?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll see you at 1:30.
Thank you.
Have a nice lunch.
Appreciate that.
Thanks.